Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Safari Pedals Show. I'm your host, Abby. If this is your first time here, welcome to the Crazy Wild Safari Pedals Podcast Zoo Thing bandwagon. It's great to have y'all here today. John Nathaniel is going to be on the show today. He is a really awesome producer, engineer, composer. He's worked with a lot of awesome artists from One Republic to Shawn Mendes. He has done some really cool things. We're going to be diving into a plethora of topics today, from his approach to mixing, music, audio, career stuff, gear, analog, digital, so many cool things. I'm really excited to dive in and have a chat with him, so I will stop blabbing and talking your ear off, and we will cut to the chat. So let's do the thing. So guys, please give a very warm Safari welcome to John Nathaniel. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Hi, Abby.
Hello. Thank you so much for hopping on the bandwagon.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So before we nerd out and dive in, let's start with who you are, what you do, and we'll take it from there.
My name is John Nathaniel. I'm a producer, composer, and mixing engineer, also mixer.
What got you into the world of audio in the first place? And since you do multiple things, producer, mixer, composer, like what came first in like the chain for you, and how did the rest transpire?
Composer first. I think, always writing music since I was like maybe 16, 17. And, cutting demos with other people never really worked out. I would hear things very specifically. And that being so specific actually drove me to mix records and to produce records and learn to arrange records. And I think that's being specific, in a way, right?
Kind of more on the mixing side for you. Like when you start a mix, you get a mix from a client. Like what are you listening for? What's your kind of philosophy of mixing? Like, do you work in stages? Like what's your approach?
Nowadays it's very different than what it used to be, because nowadays very often I'll get sessions from artists. If it's a Logic session, of course. If it's Pro Tools, it's a different story. I work in Logic. What I listen for, the first thing I listen for is the song. I listen to the intention, the songwriting, the lyrics, the melodies. This is where my ear goes first, generally speaking. Afterwards, I'll listen to the balance and be like, what's going on right now? What can I improve? Because that's your job as a mixer, right? What are the improvements that I'm going to do to the record? And then, I'll have a chat with the producer and be like, hey, are you open-minded to me changing this, changing that, and kind of get inside their head before I touch anything. So I kind of know what the limits are in terms of what I can add creatively or change without shocking anybody, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting line, like not shocking anyone. Was that kind of like something you developed over time, through trial and error, or from the jump you were like, I want to be as in communication with producers as I can?
I think you do that over time, because when you first start, especially as a young mixer, a young producer, you want people to know you did this record. So you try to do your sound and do things your way. But as you get older, you realize that there are people that work really tirelessly on records, and they have shaped the sound a certain way because they love it. And your job is not to change the record. The job is to, what is the intention that they had when they shaped that sound and made, sang it a certain way. And your job there is to enhance that, but not necessarily change it, unless that's what they want you to do. But that's a very important distinction.
Definitely. And does you having like that background as a composer firsthand, do you feel like that gives you an edge, or kind of like has you extra in tune in a way with the way that you mix?
It definitely allows me to shape EQ a certain way, because if EQ are notes. When you hear resonant frequency, they're all notes. And if you have good harmony and you can recognize tones and pitches, then you can, I would guess in my case, EQ better. It helps me to EQ things better. And also understanding what clashes in an arrangement and be like, oh, these two notes don't work together. This reverb tail probably shouldn't be that long. It clashes with the entry of that other chord, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? But yeah, having a background as a composer definitely helps when mixing records, at least for me.
Before we popped the camera on and started chatting, you did mention, like, it's not in the video, but you have a lot of outboard gear on your desk. Like, do you have any kind of specific pieces of gear or anything that's a part of your workflow? Like, did you always enjoy having like that hybrid type of setup?
I thought you'd never ask. Just kidding.
Time to geek out. Let's do it.
Yeah. Well, no, I have a couple pieces that I like for mix bus especially. I will not mix a record using outboard on specific tracks like vocals or bass or drums. For me, it's like I'd rather do it in the box. But for the mix bus, on the other hand, I do have hardware. I have a Shadow Hill dual Vandergraaf that I love. So whenever I need, to fatten up a record or get extra low mids or a low bump, this is the way to go for me. I also have the SSL Fusion. I have the back CQ, which is probably one of my favorite pieces that I have. Also the Dangerous compressor and the NG bus compressor, which this one is badass because it's digital recall. All right, so it comes with a plugin essentially, and it connects via USB. So as I'm moving stuff, I don't know if you're going to hear the click. You hear that click? That's the hardware unit.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's just the pad. You can switch it to iron, which is the transformer, and get more gain into it. That's the THD, total harmonic distortion. So, and the cool thing is you can have 3 different settings.
What went into choosing the gear that you have? Like, did you have to audition a lot of different pieces, or when you went to kind of pick things out, like you had a vision, it was clear, okay, I need these tools for like these reasons?
I think the first pieces I had was like, I want to get like some analog for my studio. So the first like hardware pieces that I got were the back CQ and the Shadow Hill. And I got lucky because these pieces are fucking sick. However, sorry, excuse my French. However, the NG bus comp was a piece that I selected specifically for the digital recall. If you look at a piece like the back CQ, it's only got high shelf, low shelf, and the rest are filters, but it's all click value. So the recall functionality is extremely fast, and it's really hard to make a mistake when recalling that piece. But when you have a lot of projects that you're mixing, I think especially if you're recalling projects, you have to think ahead and be like, well, if I have a piece that's got like 20 buttons to recall, that becomes a real nightmare, right? So the NG bus compressor, because it has a lot of buttons, it doesn't matter because it has a digital recall.
How do you not just like, how do you get work done and not nerd out all day and just like get things to click around?
I mean, I allow myself, some nerding out every time I do a session and I have time to do it. Obviously, if I'm on a deadline, there's no geeking out. I'll stick to what I know, and there's no time to experiment, but I love experimenting and trying out new plugins and trying out new hardware and new pieces. So when the deadline's a little more flexible, I'll allow myself, maybe an hour block to like trying stuff out, trying out different compressor on the mix bus to be like, what fits best. But very often I'll know just by listening to a piece of music what is going to work, because I know the sounds of I know what it does to the sound really well. Like the Shadow Hill, like I said, has a very specific bump in the low mids and the low end. So if I hear a mix that's really already super bass heavy, I know that the Shadow Hill is just going to be like too much, right? Because too much of a good thing, it's going to be muddy. But if I hear, like, let's say I'm doing this like trappy type of record and it's like a little shy in the sub area and it's like lacking a little oomph, then the Shadow Hill is going to be perfect for that. So knowing your pieces or plugins, I think how they sound and what they do to sound before you put them, whether on a track or mix bus, I think is really essential.
This podcast in general is centered around starting out, being new, being up and coming. Do you have any pieces of advice for producers and engineers that are just starting out? When
you show up, bring your 100% all the time. I know that sounds kind of cliche, but if you show up to a session and you don't want to be there, don't be there. That's the point is, if you show up, be in a good mood, be cool, and you're going to want to give your 100% because that's why people are going to call you. If they hear the effort that you put into your music, they're going to be like, wow, this guy's passionate or this girl's passionate. Let's work with them.
I love that. Guys, don't be a studio gremlin. Be a happy gnome. Be a happy gnome.
It's not just being happy. It's also bringing the passion into what you do. Like to want to be there doesn't mean like be fake happy. It's just like bring the, as Angel Batista and Dexter would say, la pasión. Do you watch Dexter?
I don't.
You a fan? Oh, like you're missing out. Such a good show.
I have this problem where like I can't watch like I have a hard time watching TV. I'm like not very well versed in like TV knowledge or movie knowledge.
That's
It's pretty
okay.
bad.
That's okay. We all have our thing, right?
Definitely. There could be worse things. I guess this is pretty okay. Since you worked with some really awesome artists and on some cool like records, are there any kind of big either musical or career lessons that like you've learned from like working on these projects?
Well, I think what I've talked about earlier about not necessarily if you get something to mix and you're the mixer, not changing the record and not trying to change the record, but trying to do that polish and enhancement. Obviously, depending on what the talk with the producer is, right? So if the producer says, hey, man, we haven't really found the tone for the record, can you help out rebalance? That's one thing. But if the person tells you, I just want you to enhance what is already there, then I think it's important that you listen. And by listening, I mean like listen to what they're saying and apply that and don't try to change the record. And that's probably the biggest career lesson at that level that I can give people. Be faithful to what you're given.
I like that line. Be faithful to what you're given. So to sum up everything we spoke about, I always love to ask our amazing guests to either drop, it can be either a piece of advice or just anything you want to say to the Safari Pedals viewers. So do you have any additional things to drop to the people?
I mean, don't be afraid to push things to their limits. You know, like I said earlier, give your 100%, but that goes to, you know, every time you do a session, try something new, try something exciting. But the most important thing, and this is something we sometimes forget, if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right.
Ooh.
Don't forget to have fun. I mean, it's such a simple concept, but it's like, this is going to make you want to show up more.
I forgot. I'm trying to think of like who said that line to me. I think it was one of my parents about like how when you have your dream job, if you don't make it your dream job, it can become a nightmare job. So like you really have to have intention and keeping, like you said, keeping the fun, bringing it in to the sessions, bringing in that like spark, that energy.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, like the world is heavy enough as it is. The last thing you need in the studio is to be heavy or to be annoying or to like, you just want to be like, let's have fun. You know, there's a time and a place, of course, if you're doing this like sadder song to have a little more vibes, but most of the time it should be fun. You should be laughing. You should laugh with your collaborators, make the environment peaceful and fun.
I love that.
It's a safe place.
Yes, peaceful, fun, safe place. We're all for it. Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time and for hopping on. I really appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate you having me.